Okay, now Caroline did say to me when she asked me to do a talk, she basically asked me to talk about a few of my favourite images. But she caught me off on the hop, really. I didn't know what to call it, and I just went. She said, you know, talking about your favourite things. I went, well, magic moments. And I said, is it too cheesy to play like a little ditty? And she said, nothing. It's too cheesy. And you so a little bit of magic moments. I won't play the whole lot, but there you go. You get the gist. So it's a little bit of an intro, and this is kind of going to give my age away a little bit. I started diving back in 1991. In fact, I did a try dive, I think a couple of years before that, and really enjoyed it. It was one of those, go to Greece on your holiday, go down, hold up a placard, and they take a photo of you, and you come back up, they drag you back up by your scruff. But when I went to Cyprus in 1991 with a friend of mine, she was a real sort of like sun worshipper. And being quite fair, I've never been able to just lay out in the sun. And there was a dive centre on the beach. And it was a BZAC centre run by an ex-military guy there. And I went to do a try dive with them, and I was hooked immediately, and so did the rest of the course. So this is me looking very dated here, rolling off the boat on my novice course in Cyprus. I suppose you could say that I've taken kind of a scenic route round to sort of where I am now. So that was me learning to dive with BZAC back in '91. And I basically dived as a holiday diver for a good like couple of years or so after that, and everybody was quite happy with my BZAC novice card until I went to Thailand, and they said, oh no, you can't dive, you've got to do your open water course. So I ended up doing my PADI there in Thailand, and then I started going to the Red Sea quite a lot, quite enjoyed, you know, sort of playing around out there. So I ended up going through the PADI system then, doing my dive master in 1997. And it was, I think it was, yeah, about 98 that I actually left and went off to work with Coral Key. Having finished my dive master, I'm probably going to say here, I wasn't a natural diver from the beginning. I think my buoyancy is actually pretty good now. It should be after about 30 odd years. But in the very beginning, it wasn't so great. And I remember my instructor specifically saying to me after my dive master, go and get some more diving experience so your buoyancy is better. So off I went to work for Coral Key, and I'm going to come on to a little bit more of that in a minute, because it really made a difference with my photography, what I did with them. So anyway, I came back, I definitely got the bug, did my PADI instructor course, and just after that was when I first took a camera in the water. I was actually a completely reluctant underwater photographer. I was on a liverboard in the Red Sea with my partner at the time, and he said he was doing a rebreather course, and the dive guide on the boat was just insistent that I take a camera in and do a photography course, and I really didn't want to do it. And in the end, he actually plopped the manual down in front of me and said, read that because you're taking this in tomorrow. And he had a Motor Marine 2, like marine camera, and I went, okay, anything for a quiet life. Anyway, because I'd been with Coral Key and been doing a lot of like surveying and stuff underwater, I was a little bit kind of like swimming around, wondering what to do, IDing corals. And so I took this camera in the next day, and it really was like love at first click. I mean, I just loved it. I drifted along the reef. We were at the Brothers, and I was drifting along the reef, and I was like playing around with the controls and things. I actually drifted away from the reef and away from my buddies. And when I actually looked up from fiddling around with it, I realized that I was completely in the blue. And I looked in front of me, and there was something gliding at me sort of through the water. And I kind of looked at it and I thought, oh my God, that's a hammerhead shark. I'd never seen a hammerhead shark before. So it's this lovely little scalloped hammerhead shark. And I thought, my goodness, my first ever shot with a camera is going to be a hammerhead shark. How amazing is that? So I waited. I remembered what the dive guide had said on the boat, and I held it up and I was waiting. And I waited and waited until it completely filled the frame, and I had it head on. And then I was so excited, I couldn't press the shutter. And I thought I'd locked it. So then I locked it, and then I unlocked it, and I got a picture of the tail as it swam away. But that was it, I was hooked. So then anyway, so I came back and I did a lot of work with Scuba Trust then for a while. And so I did my IHD instructor course. And then I wanted to go away and do some more sort of dive stuff. I basically went on a Red Sea trip, and we booked it with Crusader Travel in Twickenham, who are a big dive operator at the time, and they were looking for somebody to work in their diving department and run it. And so I left my sort of city job and moved down to Twickenham and started working in dive travel, because everyone said I was a dive bore and I just wanted to talk about diving all day. So I've saved up for myself, and I actually eventually got myself a Motomarine camera, and I was really proud of this. And I actually got my first publications with the Motomarine, because actually back then there weren't that many people taking photos, because obviously it was pre-digital, and it was a lot easier to get your work published. But in 2003 I got my first SLR, and then in 2004 I started working at Dive magazine, which is obviously when I started doing a lot more photography. I moved down to Cornwall in 2009, went freelance, did my HSE scuba, and then I had no intention of doing a degree in photography, but Alex Mustard and Alex Tattersall both came down to talk at Falmouth Uni, and Alex Tattersall phoned me up and said, "Oh, I'm down at Falmouth, fancy doing a dive at Porth Cerris tomorrow?" And I said, yeah, why not? So he came to stay, and I said, "So what's this course you've been talking on?" And he said, "Oh, marine and natural history photography." I'm like, "Really? You can do a degree in that?" And so before I knew it, like literally a couple of months after that, I was enlisted on doing this course, and I've never left the university since. So I did the degree, started working as a technician, had a couple of years where I've been doing the lecturing, and now I've kind of taken a sidestep and I'm dive safety officer. So yes, I'm still there, and obviously I'm now a BSAC instructor as well. So that's it's about kind of a scenic route to sort of where I got to. But working and volunteering with Coral Quay really opened my eyes to sort of the marine life, and I think has really helped my photography massively, because it taught me, you know, where to look for stuff. This was my first expedition, which was in East Kalimantan. We were there sort of like for a couple of months, and then I went out to work as an expedition leader in the Philippines. But doing all that diving, sort of 2 dives a day for sort of months, really took my diving onto another level. So eventually my buoyancy was good. And I still hadn't picked up a camera at this time though, and I kind of look back and think, my goodness, all those places I went to and I didn't have a camera. How awful is that? So as I said, I got published quite early. These pictures were taken, the flower there, which was in Sport Diver. Rebecca Corbally was the assistant editor at the time. She phoned me up for the Dive Divas section, and that flower was actually taken on my first course with Martin Edge in the swimming pool. And then the picture was with Alan Kenny when I was working for Scuba Trust. They were taken on a trip we did to the Red Sea. So yeah, so quite early on, I think this was about 2003, I started getting published in Sport Diver, and this was my first SLR, which I got in 2003 as well, which I was really proud of. Yeah, still a great camera. So yeah, started working for Sport Diver, and then, as I said, I then got the job at Dive magazine, and that's when I started doing obviously a lot more sort of photojournalism and photography. Helps working at a magazine, helps you to get a few sort of front covers here and there. But nowadays, you're more likely to find me facilitating diving and photography for the students at Falmouth University. And this is one of the pictures of us on our Red Sea trip earlier this year. Fortunately, we got it in before lockdown. And if I'm not with the students, then generally, hopefully I'm with one of my favourite pinniped pals out in Lundy or Scillies or something, diving around Cornwall, which I really love. Really sadly, our Lundy trip has already been cancelled this year. Big cheers. We were supposed to be going this month for our weekends of seal fun. And I think the Scillies is kind of in the balance for August as well. So that's me. So this is the first picture I want to talk about, and it isn't like obviously the most amazing picture of an oceanic white tip, but it kind of like got me on the road as far as competitions and things are concerned. But it was also quite a story getting the picture. So I was on a liveaboard in the Red Sea, and I was still shooting like analog. I had the F90X, and I had a 60mm lens on. We'd been doing some macro and stuff on the reef when this oceanic white tip came under the boat as we were coming back towards the boat. And I don't even see the picture on the right hand side. I couldn't find the big image of it. I don't think I had it scanned in, but this is the same shark, which is one from the bottom. Basically it swam right at me, and I thought, wow, great, snap, got a nice shot of it coming towards me. But then I felt something on my head, and I looked around, and there's a lady in front of me. She had her hand up. She was going, don't move, don't move. And I looked around, and everybody had stopped taking photos, and they were just staring at me going, are you okay? And so I'm thinking, my goodness, what's going on? So I'm looking over my shoulders thinking, what's happening? And I had my hair in a ponytail. So every time I was looking this way, the hair was flicking there, looking that way, hair was flicking there. And so basically the Oceanic had gone over my head, and it must have thought that my ponytail, my hair, was some kind of bait in the water. Because every time I looked, I couldn't see it because it was going apparently completely erratic right above me, with its nose in the nape of my neck, and it was following my ponytail. So everybody thought, my goodness, it's going to have a head off in a minute, which is why they'd stopped taking photos. But that was my first oceanic white tip. I never dive with sharks, I would like to state, without a hood nowadays. Always tuck my hair away. I've become completely paranoid because whenever I see an oceanic white tip, I seem to have a little bit of a thing with it. Maybe it's because from my first experience I got a little bit nervous. Anyway, that oceanic white tip, it may have frightened me a little bit at the time, but I won my first the beginner's portfolio at BSoup with that image in those 6, and yeah, and I think it won one of the monthly competitions at BSoup as well. But that kind of like set me on the road. In some ways it made it quite hard because it was quite early on. This was still 2003. I'd only been shooting, you know, for a couple of years. And because I'd won the portfolio, it took me, I had to then enter everything in the advanced category straight away. There was no like beginners for me at all. So in some ways it made it quite difficult entering competitions and things. But then I suppose again, in another way, it kind of pushes you to sort of do a bit more as well, because you know you're going to be, you know, up against the big guys. And then a lot later on, this was actually on my student trip to the Red Sea when I was still a student, and again saw an oceanic white tip at Elphinstone, and again it was going completely mad in the water. We think actually at this point it was because there were liverboards around. This was like later in the year, and I think one of the liverboards had been throwing chicken or something overboard, and so the shark was in a bit of a feeding frenzy. But it whizzed past me and I was quite nervous. I was like, oh, I think I'm getting out now. But yeah, beautiful shark though, and so many pilot fish all around him. It was really, really lovely. It did actually, I don't know if you remember Dive magazine back in the day, they used to have a section called It Happened to Me. And I think they actually had an It Happened to Me about the oceanic white tip chasing my hair. With one of those cartoon pictures that they did in there, and it was Oceanics Prefer Blondes or something like that. So, so yeah, me and Oceanics. So I'm going to stay on a bit of a shark theme for a minute here, and I was very lucky to be. I used to dive a lot with Charlie Hood because I used to live down in Penzance, and this was actually before he'd started doing any of the charters or anything to shoot blue sharks. And he said, oh, I've been talking to some of the anglers and that they reckon that we can, you know, get some blue sharks coming into the boat by, you know, using some bait and that in the water. Do you fancy coming and having a go? And so it was myself and Charles Hood and Pedro Vieira went off in Charles' boat with this stinking bait. Had no idea whether, you know, we were going to see any sharks or not. But we got out there. I think we went 2 miles out from shore, dropped the bait into the water, and then just waited. And I think we'd been waiting for about 2 hours. I actually had my feet up, I'm sponsored. It was a really beautiful, calm day, quite hot in the sunshine. And I was kind of almost like starting to fall asleep when I just saw this fin just like carving its way through the water. And it was just beautiful. And it was just one of those kind of moments. It's like, like massive excitement. And so we had 6, I think, come in over the day in sort of pairs. The first couple of times we didn't get into the water, and then so I think I was the first person to, well, I don't know, it was myself or Pedro actually. I think it was myself, first person to actually get in the water with the blues, and they were just beautiful. I mean, they were so curious, and this was one of the first pictures that was on that first trip, and ended up on a front cover of Scuba, because obviously it was the first time, you know, that it had been done, so it was really, really, really exciting. And, you know, some people say, oh, it's quite expensive to go out with Charles for the day. But, you know, I remember, you know, when I was at BSoup years ago, people used to spend a fortune to photograph blue sharks. They'd go to, you know, the blues in the California kelp forest, spent thousands of pounds. The Azores was thousands of pounds. And now, you know, you can do it for a couple of hundred in Cornwall. So it's like, why not? But I don't know whether he's going to do any this year. But yeah, but it's an amazing experience. And if you haven't done it, I think some of you haven't been to Cornwall. If you haven't done it, it's really worth doing because it's really great. And Charles has learned from the best. You know, he went out a lot with Jim Abernathy and that back in the day out on you know, shearwater, and so he's watched Jim wrangling, and he's got the same technique. He wrangles the sharks in, and if you don't even want to get into the water with them, it's great because you can just lay it across the sponson, and literally he brings them in, pulls the bait past, and the shark just beautifully swims past you, so you can just get the photos it's going past. So yeah, so quite amazing. Anyway, I'm staying on a little bit of a shark theme for a minute here. I was going to read this poem for you, but I can't really because it's on the wrong side of the screen. I love sharks, absolutely love them. And so when I first moved down to Cornwall, to celebrate my decree eyesight, I decided to go with a dive photo guide on a Guadalupe trip to see the great whites. And they're just beautiful. And I thought, as it's World Ocean Day, oh, can you see it? Has that gone? Oh, have I broken my screen? Help! Alex!
We've just lost your presentation. We can see your GoToMeeting in the web browser right now.
Where's it gone? Where did that go?
Jane, I think you just need to navigate back to your presentation. Should do. Just find your.
It just disappeared. Yeah.
There it is. Got it back.
Can I move this box on the right-hand side? Is it movable? Because I think that's what I did. I was just thinking that I was going to. See, it's gone again. I was just going to read the poem to you because I don't know if you I'm sure you all know Jill McDonald, but I took this photo in Guadalupe and she wrote the most beautiful poem for it. And as it was World Oceans Day, I thought I'd be a bit different and read you a poem. But it's all gone a bit haywire. Does anybody know if I can move the box so that I can see the words? No. Okay. I won't read you the poem then. That's a shame.
Jane, we can see the words. There's a slide. Well, no, there was a slide with two.
Perhaps Rasheen could. Perhaps Rasheen could recite it. You know, for
you. Go
you.
on then, Rasheen, read it.
Oh really? Okay. Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? I'd love to stay and chat, chew the fat, talk about this and that, but I've got to go. Seas to sow, seals to throw, miles to go. You seem like a nice chap, cool dude, not rude, pretty shrewd, taking pictures, not my fins, all my teeth, my jaw, my skin. The bad guys go mad, think I can be had, think I'm vicious, ambitious, malicious, but I'm just living, hunting and a-fishing. I don't mean no harm, I'm Mr. Charm, me, smooth, sleek, efficient, fleet. Don't hurt me, I won't hurt you. Pass on by, cruise on through. Talk to me, don't talk to me, I don't care. But don't tell the bad guys where I am. They'll kill me quick as a spit and there's nothing I can do about it. Take your pictures, leave me be. I won't hurt you if you don't hurt me.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Hey.
Yay.
Hey, round of applause.
Bravo.
So here's another shark. Yeah, I know I'm not. Oh, I'm muted. I was muted. Sorry. So this was actually taken in the Bahamas, and the story behind this is I was actually on a tiger shark trip. However, it was very early in the trip, and we were diving a reef, but we weren't expecting to see tiger sharks particularly. Jim Abernathy jumped in the water. He had some bait, And myself, I dropped in behind him, and then Simon Rogerson was coming in after me as my buddy. But I got down onto the top of the reef before Simon arrived. And Jim was busy doing whatever he was doing with the bait and things. And I sort of looked around, and we'd been given this big briefing about you must never let a tiger shark, come from the side or behind. You have to have eye contact at all times. And I was on the reef, and I looked ahead of me. There was a tiger. There were lemons literally pouring over the reef like I've never seen. And in between the lemons, there are all these sneaky tiger sharks. So there was a tiger shark right in front of me, and there was one coming from either side of me as well, and they were all coming straight for me on the reef. And so I sat there and I was like, oh my goodness, which one am I supposed to look at? And I was really, really relieved that Jim realised what was going on in the end, and so he shook the bucket and whatever he did, and they kind of skidded off in a different direction. And then Simon Rogerson arrived, and I have to say, I have never been so relieved to see Simon in my entire life. Because I was thinking, yeah, he's bigger than me. They'll definitely go for him before they go for me. But they are beautiful sharks, and but I have to admit, I did find it quite nerve-wracking. At some points you were there with your dome, and you got the dome port, and literally their nose is on the dome, and then you're kind of pirouetting around in the water with this. And the heads are like this, they're huge, and they're on the end of your dome port as you go around in a circle, and trying to keep your eye on others coming, from different directions as well, because on one of the dives we had 13 tiger sharks just on that dive coming from kind of all directions. So it was really, really amazing, but also sort of a little bit hairy as well. And on one particular dive that I went on, it was late afternoon, and there was quite a current running, so they always know which direction the sharks are coming from because they're always heading into the current. But it started getting dark, and I said, "Are we staying?" And the dive guide, it wasn't Jim that was in the water on this particular point, and the dive guide went, yeah, it's fine, you can stay. And it got dark, and literally as it got dark, almost at exactly the same point, the current went gone, and it was like, oh. So pitch black. I know there's quite a lot of tiger sharks around here, and then this huge head came right over my shoulder and went, I think I'm getting out now. And I was out of the water before you could say Rumpelstiltskin. And actually the dive guide brought the rest of the people out sort of a few minutes later. But yeah, it was all very exciting. And it does, I know it looks a bit awful, this picture, as if I'm actually standing on the reef. It isn't as bad as it looks, but this was me trying to keep my camera between me and the shark, which we were supposed to do. And also they had we had poles, so we had a pole down our jacket as well. So if the shark should take the camera, you then had a pole that you could bring out and have a pole between you and the shark. There had been a few sharks, you've probably seen it on Wet Pixel and things, sort of back in the day, they did take DSLRs, and there'd been a couple where a tiger shark had taken someone's DSLR and it carried it in its mouth, and they got it back, it had dropped it some way off, and they managed to get it back, and it had taken photos while it had it in its mouth. And so all those photos the shark had inadvertently taken were up on Wet Pixel. It was a tiger shark takes up photography and prefers Nikon. And then it had all the shots that it had taken saying, yeah, he needs to work a little bit on his composition. He's shooting down a little bit too much, but yeah, it was all good fun. But yeah, great trips to do. And then just, one more, this is actually a blue from the Azores. You've got the pilot fish around that you don't get, sadly, in the UK. But it's just those moments sometimes when, they just pull those funny faces and dive around you. And it's like, wow, that's just really cute. I don't know, you can tell I'm a bit of a shark fan. So I won't bore you with any more sharks. Let's go on to seals. That's kind of more what I'm sort of known for, is like seedy stuff. So the shot over on the left-hand side, that was taken, look, way back in 2004 with my Nikon D70. And I have to say that is probably the most successful shot that I've ever taken. In some ways, I prefer the pup over on the right-hand side, which was taken much later in Lundy. But the one in 2004, it was just a one shot at that seal that I had. So I was in the Farne Islands, and I was actually, I think I had the 20mm lens on, because I was looking at the sun stars and things like that on the rocks and things there. And so I was swimming around like quite happily, taking sun stars and lobsters and things. And you know, you just get that intuitive feeling sometimes, don't you, that you're being watched. Someone's got their eye on you. And I kind of like peered over my shoulder, and I could see this little pup come in, and it was like kind of like in the weed, and I could see it kind of peeking, and it was getting closer and closer, a little bit more curious. And so I sort of turned my camera around into the portrait position, flicked a couple of the dials, and turned around really, really slowly. And literally, as I turned round, it was there, kind of in front of me. I got one shot, which was this, and off it went back into the grass. So it was literally just that one shot. But you know, I got back on the boat after that, and I said, "I've got a front cover," and everyone went, "Yeah, right." And there was a couple of people on the boat, and it was Len Dealey and that at the time. I went, "Let's have a look." Oh, I don't know about that, because it was actually very green. You know, I was at about 20 meters when I took the picture, and so it had a real green tinge over it, but it just black and whited up really well, and it went on to do sort of really well for me. The one on the right, no real story for that really. That was just a lovely moment playing with a seal pup at Lundy. But yeah, that seal, that was probably one of the only times, apart from a couple of like in-house meetings at B-Suit many years ago, that I actually beat Alex Mustard. And he got runner-up in the black and white on Steve, and I got the first, the Projet d'Or. And I found this write-up on B-Suit, and I was having a look to see if I could find any pictures today. But it was quite unusual back then for, I think Alex said in the talk that he gave you recently, I watched that online, and he said it was quite unusual for UK images to be placed at the Antibes Festival. So it was really cool for the seal to win the Projet d'Or. But it ended up all over the place, that seal. Even Tatler in Italy ran it, and Scuba Diver Australasia, it's on a van down at Swanage. It really did sort of go around the house and just appeal to people. I think it's just that, you know, that look, those eyes, very cute. But you know, all seals are fun, and this is like a completely different style of image entirely. But it's just those moments when the seal kind of attacks your buddy, sends them flying. I should have put some of you in, Rasheen, actually. I got plenty of you being attacked. But that, you know, it's just a moment, isn't it, where, you know, you can see the seals almost laughing. It's like, yeah, great, got this one. And this was again in the shallows at Lundy, which is one of those like good fun kind of dives, rolling around with a seal. So you need to dive in the UK, anybody who isn't. It's a lot of fun. And I have to say, you know, having dived with quite a lot of critters around the world, I would say that the grey seal is probably more fun than anything else I've ever dived with, you know, more fun than dolphins, because they're just more interactive. I mean, they are literally like big puppies underwater. So it is really something that you need to experience. It's just amazing. They're just beautiful. I do love my wreck diving, as well as like marine life, which I'm kind of more known for. There's something really special about, especially Scapa Flow. I've dived Scapa Flow many times now, and I think this was taken on a history week that I did up there, Scapa History Week. This was a skipper over on the left-hand side. You see, this is why I love wrecks, because wrecks really are, you know, an artificial reef as well as anything else, and they're covered in anemones and life and things. I've often said that actually I'd quite like to go to Scapa one time with a macro lens, and because the hulls of the boats are actually smothered in brittle stars and all sorts, and I'm sure there's some fantastic macro there, but majority of the time, obviously, when people are going up there, they're going to get the big kind of wreck images. Picture on the right hand side I really liked, only because nobody else had that image at the time, and I was small enough to be able to squidge into this kind of gap and get a shot in at the back. These are both taken on the Colne. So yeah, so that's why I really liked that one. But you can have a lot of fun in Scapa, and one of the magic moments I had up in Scapa was this particular dive. This was on the Colne. This is with Bob Anderson. He was modelling for me at the back, and I was trying to take a photo of this gun, and I just wanted somebody lighting it up. But this starfish very kindly dropped off the top and just sat itself like beautifully positioned right on top of Bob's hood, and he hadn't noticed. So I thought, yeah, it's a great shot. I like the starfish on top. It was just one of those magic dives, because when we came out from this gun, and this next picture I'm going to show you, it's not a very good picture, I warn you, but it was just amazing to see on a wreck in Scapa. So we came out from the rear, and that swam past. I was like, wow, you don't see that very much when you're diving on wrecks and kind of taking pictures of guns and things, and this skate just went over our heads. It's not a very good picture because I was so excited. All I could do was like bounce up and down in the water, go, Bob, 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 have you seen it? Have you seen it? There's a skate. It's like a British manta ray. It's amazing. So it was a magic moment. Yeah. So. But yeah, wrecks, just as I said, are stunning. This is one of my favourite wrecks. I really, really love it. This is the Hispania in Mull, and it's just festooned with anemones. And there's no particular story again behind this one. Just the fact, these pictures, just the fact that I was just so blown away by the amount of life on it. And obviously you can imagine that it's a wreck that has to be dived at slack, because you get a good current running through there, which is why you've got so many filter feeders and that on there. But it is absolutely beautiful, more beautiful than a lot of wrecks that you see overseas. You don't see this much amount of life, festooned on them like you do in British waters a lot of the time. So it is special. Now, this is a little bit of a story, because I don't generally do deep wrecks in the UK. And I'm not a real DP, obviously I've done Scapa Flow and things, but I had an opportunity. I was asked to do a feature on some of the wrecks in Cornwall, and this is the U-1021, which is a German submarine, which is just off the coast from Newquay. And I was kind of talked into doing it. It's like a 50-odd meter dive, and which isn't normally kind of my sort of area, but I thought, oh, okay, I'll do it. And the first time I did it, I didn't get very many images at all. So I did it again with Charlie Hood the second time. The first time was a nightmare. I think I got to 30 meters and my inflator came off my dry suit. And then so I was fighting for about, I don't know, it seemed like forever, but I'm sure it was probably only seconds to try and get this inflator back on my dry suit. Because when you're 35 meters or so in the UK, you start getting a little bit narked at that point. So by the time I got to 50, I was kind of like, I'm not moving away from the shot line. So I got a couple of pictures and went back up. And the next time I did it with Charlie Hood, but he was on a rebreather and I had just had my twin 7s, although I had like an extra 7 to do some deco on the way up. And I was just amazed. I mean, absolutely amazed, because a 50 meter in the UK, I was expecting it to be really dark. I wasn't expecting very much life on the wreck at all. And when we got there, it was crystal clear. It was really quite light, as you can see in the pictures. And again, it was like covered in anemones and things. And the one on the right hand side, you can see like all the holes and like on the images. You've got conger eels in there and crabs in there. And I really was blown away about how pretty it was. I'm not tempted to keep doing 50 meter wrecks, I'd like to say, but it was amazing to do and so intact. It was absolutely beautiful. So, and this again is a Cornish wreck, and this is the train wreck, just out St Ives. And I think there's just something really interesting about diving trains underwater. We see boats underwater all the time, but trains, it's like the train off the Thistlegorm. I always love swimming over there and taking a picture of that. So getting all these kind of wheels and things, down there is really, really quite interesting, I think. I like seeing things that are like a little bit different underwater. And so, yeah, train kind of like, yeah, works for me, I suppose. So kind of back to more what I'm sort of known for, I suppose, is that, I'm an absolute sucker, anybody that knows me, for a dual anemone, and I love them. And very fortunately for us, we have a lot down here in the southwest, and they're absolutely beautiful. My favourite places, I suppose you would say, are the Manacles, which you can get to out of Port Keris, or even from Falmouth. And some of the walls there, especially on Bays Rock, I think is my favourite. It literally is just smothered in every single colour of dual anemones, the pinks, the greens, the purples. And you can just say, I'm just like a child in a sweet shop. It's like, oh, there's another colour. Oh, there's another colour. I'll just take that one. And I can be there for ages playing around. But it was just I'd been looking at my images of jewel anemones, and especially when the jewel anemones were closed up, and I really quite liked them when they closed up to feed as well. And but quite often when I had them closed up, I was noticing there was quite a lot of mess around them, and I kept just getting rid of these faces. Oh, it's got too much mess in it. And it wasn't until I went to the Scillies about 3 years ago now with some marine biologists and Bernard Picton, and I was watching. We were all sat around, obviously looking at our images in the afternoon, and for all their sea search stuff and that they were doing, they were taking pictures. But then they were magnifying, zooming right in and marking down all the bycatch that was in the images as well, stuff that they didn't realise that was there. And so I started, looking at mine a little bit more carefully and realising that this, what I thought was grass, throwing images away for years, was actually little skeleton shrimps and things, and little, and really amazing stuff. And so I started getting a little bit like, I suppose, a bit obsessed about, taking actually the stuff on and around the jewel anemones rather than the jewel anemones themselves. Oh, sorry, I didn't put the thingy up. So here we go. This is like one of my favorite images from, this is taken on Wingaltang in the Scillies. It's a beautiful wall. It was a beautiful dive, this particular dive. I was diving with David Morgan. There was quite a current running, and so David said as we jumped in, skipper said you have to watch it and get right into the wall. As we jumped in, David said, look, if you lose me at the beginning, don't worry, I'll find you, okay? And actually, as we jumped in, as it happened, David went whoosh, and I went, oh. He told me to carry on, so I'll carry on, he'll come and find me. So I'd tucked myself right into the wall, and so I was going along just literally all the jewel anemones. Fortunately, David found me right at the end of the dive, and we came up like we'd done a perfect dive together. Obviously, we hadn't. But as I was coming up the wall, I'd been taking all these beautiful just anemones, and then I got into this bit that was all a little bit cruddy, and I was looking, and I thought there's something moving there. They definitely look like skeleton shrimp, and the only reason that I could see these is because I had the 105 lens on. Well, I got the thing there, yeah. I had the 105 lens on, and I had the super macro converter on. And when I looked through the viewfinder, I could actually see what was going on, because like my eyesight's not good enough just to see it, normally now. I think I need a big magnifying glass. But like looking through the viewfinder, it was like, what on earth is happening? I thought that the sea spider was attacking the skeleton shrimps there. You can see there's the 2 skeleton shrimps. But when I actually blew it up on my laptop when I got back to the room, it's like, this is interesting. One of the skeleton shrimp looks like it's actually strangling the other skeleton shrimp. And if you look closely at the sea spider, you see its eyes are on the left-hand side. So it's actually running away. It's like, oh my God, a murder, like run away. And I know I'm kind of making up a story here, but it's like, it's just this miniature, tiny, really interesting world there that we don't really know very much about at all, and is really, really exciting, I think, to go and try and find these little things and see what's going on. So there's a little bit of story behind this one. I know it is only a thornback ray, but I was the only person, I think, that lived in Cornwall for many years who had never seen a thornback ray. They're one of the most common creatures to see when you go out to like the East Narrows and on the Merle beds and that. You see them around Durgan, and everybody sees them apart from me. and I was told I dive with so many different people. We go out on these Friday night dives, and I think I dive with pretty much everybody on the boat, because everybody says, oh, I see them all the time, come with me, you'll see loads of rays. And so I'd go with that person, and we wouldn't see any. Colin from Seaway said, it's just, you're just far too slow taking photos. Of course you won't see anything, because I find something and I'm there for a while with a camera. And then eventually I dived with Mike Etheridge, and he took me, and we saw several actually on this particular dive. And so this was my first ever thornback ray, which is why I was really excited. It was kind of like it gone into kind of nights on this particular dive, so it was dark by this point. But they were just beautiful. I mean, absolutely beautiful. And you can see that it's on a bed of merle. And we're really lucky with the merle beds down here. We've got several merle beds, a really important habitat. There's amazing life in there. And, they're a great nursery ground for so many creatures and things. but the bonus is you've got these beautiful thornback rays there as well. So yeah, it became a big standing joke on social media. You know, Mike Etheridge is continually putting up, I just seen a ray, it was looking for Jane Morgan, and this was happening every week. And I was like, oh, I still haven't seen one, how embarrassing. So yeah, I popped my cherry with this one on the East Narrows. So this was just a magic moment, and it was just a funny moment. This was in the Maldives, and this was Simon Rogerson, who was totally oblivious to the fact that he was being followed by this large, very large Meconian wrasse. And I turned around to take a picture of Simon going back to the reef, and I just thought it was hilarious because he was just so totally oblivious to it. But yeah, it was just one of those magical kind of like, yeah, that's quite funny kind of moments. Sneaking up behind him, following his bubbles, I think. And there may not be the best picture of a basking shark, but it was the first basking shark that I ever saw. So it was like, you know, my heart, I saw one. And the problem was I was completely and utterly spoilt on the particular day that I saw this shark. We'd been to the Bee Soup Splash-In, which was up at the Mount Basson Centre in the day. And Charlie Hood had said, oh, well, you know, do you want to come down and have a go with the basking sharks? And myself and my partner at the time, and Linda and Brian Pitkin, went, oh, yeah, we'll come. And on the day that we were going down, he said, you know, I don't think it's worth you coming. It's like really rough. You're not going to see very much. It's too rough to spot the fins and that in this kind of weather. And we said, well, you know, we're down here, so we'll go anyway. It's fine. It'll be just nice to go out on the boat. So we got out of Penzance Harbour, and we were literally surrounded by basking sharks, like loads of them, absolutely loads of them. And Charles was dropping us in the water, kind of ahead of the shark. And then, you know, and so the shark would be then swimming towards you, and you could get a shot as it went past. And at one point he went, Jane, yeah, here you go, like there's one coming that way. And I went, there's only one. Totally spoiled, you know, because we'd had them in numbers most of the day. But I was quite inexperienced at the time, and I've never been brilliant at snorkeling, to be fair. And I was so excited. I mean, so excited that I completely messed up my one really good opportunity. So this shark swam right towards me, mouth wide open. What did I do? Turn the shutter speed the wrong way. I got this like slow motiony kind of blur of it coming towards me, which wasn't really what I was looking for. I wanted a nice sharp image, but actually I quite like it now. So it's just like yeah, you fool. You turned the button the wrong way. Get to know your kit. So, and then there's just those little magic-y moments, just little ones, you know, where you know, things just like work out, or you know, getting to a nice position for you. So these are a couple of old pictures here. But butterfly fish in the Red Sea, you know, I try to photograph them so much. They're often on the reef. They're generally not right together, and then just sometimes it just comes right, doesn't it? And they swim in a nice formation for you and make themselves nice and tidy, which is really sweet of them. Again, you know, with these little whip gobies, I've always loved photographing whip gobies. Always struggled to get two in the frame without chopping a tail or something, because they move so quickly, and I managed to do it on this occasion, so I was quite happy with that. That was in Monado. And then there's little magic moments. This is quite an old photo, as you can tell by the camera D70. This was actually in Nueva in the Red Sea, and I was out on a night dive. And it's just like one of those night dives when you think, ah, Spanish dancer, hooray, amazing Spanish dancer. And then when you find the Spanish dancer, and you also found that it's got shrimps under its gills as well, and it's like, yes, I've hit the jackpot. And yeah, just like, you know, beautiful to see. There's a little bit of story behind this. This is just like the most invisible anemone that I've seen in my life. I actually went on an anemone hunting expedition with Bernard Picton in Ireland, and I was diving with Becky Hitchin, and we were looking for this particular anemone, which is called the Edwardsia claparedi. I think that's how you pronounce it. But it's almost invisible, and there's no way that I would have found them. But Becky, she's a marine biologist, she found them. He was just on the side of the Drake, the wreck of the Drake, and just amazing. It's like, wow, how do you find these things? They're just so, you know, when you start looking even just into tiny grains of sand, and you start seeing like these amazing little things there that you didn't know existed. Yeah, nice when you get just a polyp really. But yeah, I love macro. I love taking like little polyps and things like that. So yeah, no real story there, I'm afraid. But yeah, just nice shot to take. What I really love about photography is like when you get those kind of like touching moments between critters and things, which doesn't happen that much, but it just seems like a really nice romantic moment between these two pipefish in the Red Sea, which I really liked. And it's not just pipefish that can be romantic as well, so can great white sharks. So these two are kind of like, you know, touching fins, and they were quite a long way under the boats, and I could see them swimming around, and they were just kind of like touching each other, like there was some kind of affection there. You know, I could be making that up, but you know, it was nice, and a nice thought that they were. It was sweet. So, and I've always been a sucker for an anemone fish. So here's one of my favorites. I suppose this was taken in the Maldives. I love the anemones when they close right up. I love the velvety, you know, textures and that of the skirts and that on them, which is just beautiful. And if you have a look around sort of the very edge, I don't know why I'm pointing at the picture because you can't see me. If you look around the very edge, you got all these tiny little shrimp eyes as well, where the little shrimps are like, you know, on the edge there. And yeah, just one of my very favorite things. And especially when they come in multiple colors as well. So here's another one. This is also Maldives, a bit earlier. But they have the most beautiful colored anemones there, and which is just beautiful to take pictures of. They all look like they're tucked up in bed, ready for bed, don't they? So tucked up, ready for bed. 43 minutes. I was told no more than 45, so I'm nearly there. So that's it. So to end, I think I should.